So this video is my 1 year review of Moldavite, which I've got my second piece of Moldavite right here. I've got another video that I've made on Moldavite, but it wasn't a 1 year review. If you look at the different videos that I have on my channel, a lot of the experience that I go in depth on in my videos, they happened over this year. The Cliff Notes version of what happened is, I did not expect the events that I experienced to take place in my life. Some of those events were going to prison while on the way to a crypto conference in Los Angeles, hitting a state of mania and needing to be hospitalized in my hometown, which I'm in right now. Other things were having my habits with intoxicants and substances dramatically put straight in my face, and having me need to decide between my own health and the habits that I had at the time over the last year that got put in my face. This is my 1 year review, and I want to encourage you, because you're looking into Moldavite, you're on this video. This energy works in such a way where you receive what you're looking for, but in a way that you did not think possible. Many times, especially in my experience, you experience the change in your life one of the only ways, in a startling way, that you're not expecting. So I'll just tell my story of what happened over the last year. Last July, 21st of July, is when I initially picked up my Moldavite Expressions of Time. It's a store here in Coldstream, British Columbia. And then over the next month, I got Moldavite. I should add that I got it because I had just in passing saw somebody say, oh, this is something that could help your life, or maybe I saw a TikTok video about it. I don't really know, but I was at such a point in my life where I figured, okay, well, if there's transformation that can that can start taking action in my life, then I really want that. And so I purchased my Moldavite there, and things really took off without me even being conscious of it. I was vaping every single day last year. I was drinking constantly, almost every day. I was consuming cannabis recreationally, maybe every week or twice a week. And about a month after I got my Moldavite is when I ended up in prison in Salt Lake City. That story goes like this. I manifested these tickets to a conference called VeeCon, Gary Vaynerchuk runs, and last year was in Los Angeles. My roommate at the time in Calgary and we saw that there was a competition on X, on Twitter, and you had to create a meme and you would be submitted into this competition to win free tickets. So I figured, well, let's just believe that we already got it. And we did. I remember the moment I got the message on my phone, and I've got a video where I talk about this a little more you can watch. The Vaynerchuk team said, hey, you won. Get yourself ready to come to VeeCon. Now, the strange thing, I'd already bought the tickets to VeeCon. I was so in belief that I would be there that we had already bought the tickets to go before they actually ended up in the inbox. And how I ended up in prison is this. I was careless. The morning of flying out, I had a line of cocaine. I was experimenting with intoxicants and substances, and I wasn't an active cocaine user. I'd only try it maybe once a month or so. In Calgary, with Calgary Stampede going on, it was an additive that could make the experience a lot more lively. But where I really went wrong is I had a line of cocaine on the way to the airport. And what happened before the airport is even longer, another story. I mean, talk about the energy of Moldavite. I was supposed to be on a plane the day before, and then every single thing that could have happened went wrong on the way to the airport. My roommate was just a little bit late, and then the lift was a little bit late, And as I was trying to find the check-in on my phone, I couldn't find it because I was getting technological glitches on the way to the airport. By the time we arrived, the boarding had already finished. And this was right after a hailstorm had happened in Calgary, where I needed to rebook the flight. The first one that I had was canceled. And so I was trying to show up for a flight that was last minute rebooked. And it just was such a fiasco. And then I wasn't able to get on the plane, which is the first time in my life where I was never able to make it for my flight. And I was so mad. My roommate Chris saw me just fume out about it. And the interesting thing is, it's because that flight was missed that the next day I experienced my overstimulation event. So I had a line of cocaine on the way to the airport, then I got on the flight. What I had on me was also a stimulant called modafinil. I had armodafinil, which is a longer acting version of modafinil, which is a wake promoting drug prescribed to narcoleptics. A lot of entrepreneurs will use it, or CEOs, in order to be able to make better decisions and to focus themselves on their day. So that's what I was using it for. However, I made the mistake of combining it with cocaine on the flight. I had a route from Calgary into Salt Lake City, and then from Salt Lake City to Los Angeles. By the time I hit Salt Lake City, without going into detail, I ended up having an overstimulation. So I ended up leaving the airport, and it was as though I was believing I'm in the Matrix, in a Ready Player One environment, and like I was communicating with live watchers or viewers on the other side of reality. If you can imagine that on the other side of existence on planet Earth, like there's the spirit realm, and imagine that everything over there is just the same as we've got it here, so we would have live streamers there, right? That's what I believed I was being able to communicate with during this overstimulation event. And what I ended up doing was believing every single thought that came into my head right off the bat, one after another. And then I ended up damaging property by running on a car. And the cops ended up getting called, apprehended me, and they were able to calm me down, take me into the fire station and try to figure out what's going on. And that's when they found out that I had cocaine and armodafinil, and I was in a stimulated frame of mind, and that was why I wasn't really making sense at the time. And I ended up getting hospital help that night. And the next day when I went to reboard my flight to try to make it to Los Angeles is when they had their ping go off in the airport, and cops showed up, said, "We've got to arrest you for damage of property under $5,000. I ended up in jail August 9th, 2024. And I was in a manic state of mind. I didn't really know what to make of it. One of the things I'll never forget that happened was that night when I went to bed. It was as though I was having psychic intuition or thoughts. Best way I can describe it is, while I was in the waiting room or the pool room getting ready to check into prison, I could hear my ancestors or dead family or friends, or even the ones that are alive, as though they were in a dream state and they were all in a room, and I could hear what's going on. I couldn't see it, but I could hear it all right the same way audibly as we hear normal conversation in our day-to-day lives. And that was a hugely crazy experience. I don't know if it was due to the stimulation that I had from the cocaine armodafinil mix, and then the lamotrigine, I think it is, that they gave me to try to calm me down the day before. By the time I got to prison, and I had this eternity dream. Okay, I don't know how. I need to unpack this a little better in another video, but when I got into the jail cell and I got checked in, then with all of the voices that I was hearing in my head, one common theme was that I had figured out how to be able to see past the veil in reality, and what Christ consciousness really is, and what the Bible was really saying. It was different from all of the things that I'd been raised in the Christian church or the Orthodox Russian church to believe. It was wider and greater and more capacitating as a whole. And when I got into my cell, I remember in my audible self, I could feel like there were all of the negative spiritual energies that each other prisoner had in this cell. It just felt dark and draining, and like something was seeping my energy. So I started having in my audible self, in my mind's audible self, I was doing what was the equivalent of like a sermon or a spiel to all of these energies and these demons and these attitudes that wanted to drain life. And I said, even when you read what the Bible does talk about, the recompensive attitude of Jesus Christ and what the death and resurrection of Jesus really meant, there's a possibility that even with all of the terrible, damaging things that you've done, you demons or you negative spirits, if you were to be able to admit to that and then say, okay, we're going to change and find a way to start committing to change and truly transform your attitude and your energy itself, then you could even come into what is called the kingdom of heaven and operate and be a part of it. There was this huge spiel that I gave on that subject, and then the eternity dream happened. When I went to bed, it's as though I didn't see anything visually like you normally do in a dream, a visual dream. Now, this was an energy dream, as though I'd transported to the future and the past. I remember it was like I went all the way in the past and communicated with Solomon or with the Pharaoh. Then I went into the future, eons and eons into the future, where humanity had already gone and figured out space travel and had created interplanetary civilizations, and there were ways to be able to send consciousness from Earth all the way to a civilization on Saturn between separate bodies. So you would send your consciousness from Earth and get into a machine, and based on the frequency that you are tuned into, you would be able to properly align with the frequency of the receiving signal on the Saturn planet. And then allow yourself to consciously continue to evolve and create and be a part of civilization there. I won't go too much into that eternity dream. But there was something that significantly shifted my perspective and my outlook. And that's not even where it ended. This was all just in the first month of working with Moldavite. I got out of jail after 3 days. And then when I returned to Calgary, I had missed the VeeCon event. I didn't realize that I was not in the best state of mind, and that I was in high energy, but that my habits, more so than anything, they had taken over. And so I was continuing to vape every single day, consuming nicotine. I started drinking more than normal. In a way, it was unconscious. I ended up drinking all of my roommates' liquor. And then it's like I got locked out on the streets in Calgary. I was house sitting for this one couple, and then the brakes on my roommate, I was driving the roommate's car. The brakes went bad, and I was trying to repair that. And then I ended up parking the car after finishing house sitting this one night. I drove really slow because the brakes weren't really working, so I'm like easing the e-brake, and I drove all the way to this park, and I wanted to go for a short walk. Dawn was just coming up, and I was sleep deprived. I ended up walking through this park and then going over a fence and up a really steep hill in an area you're not really supposed to go. I ended up in a residential area, and my mind was telling me like, oh my gosh, I've done it. I'm breaking out of the matrix. And there was all of these elusive, delusional ideas that were coming through my head due to the state of mania. So that day I ended up, after walking through the park, I continued walking and walking. My phone died, and I was just walking towards an end I didn't really know about. I ended up getting lost. I couldn't find the car after that. And then I ended up, I remember being able to finally return after I had forfeited my bag. So I was walking for so long and so dehydrated and so sleep deprived that I ended up walking for probably like 2 days all around different areas of Calgary. And at one point this evening, because my mind was so distorted, I had a pink backpack with both of my passports. I'm a dual citizen. I've got American citizenship and Canadian citizenship. I had my MacBook in there. I had my backup hard drive, my headphones, all of my valuables, all of them. I took that backpack and I put it down. And I ended up walking for an hour up the road. It was at this McDonald's on 17th Street in Calgary. And for some reason, the very difficult to understand part was looking at everyone and everything around me. It felt as though the universe was dancing all around me, or like I was controlling the matrix. I don't know how you want to put it. And my best way of interpreting what it actually was is that I was so sleep deprived that people were looking at me thinking, is that guy okay? What's going on with him? And I was interpreting it a different way. So I ended up putting that backpack down. When I came back an hour later, I believed that it would be there when I put it down. I believed that it would stay. But no, I got jacked by some homeless guys, and they ended up racking up like a $3,000 bill on my credit card. This is all still in August. So I ended up getting back to the apartment, having a few more days where I was walking around through the streets of Calgary and I couldn't get back in the apartment. And my parents ended up getting called to come take care of me, and I was in such a frantic, rabid, aggressive state of mind. I didn't know why, but it was also because I felt like I was in this mindset of that I had figured it out and that the secret had been revealed to me of how the universe works. That secret being that you really do get to be whoever you want to be, and the only thing that's holding you back is your own conscious decisions today of whatever story you continue to want to tell yourself and you continue wanting to live in. For instance, what that means is the only opinion that truly matters is your opinion of you. All other people's opinions are going to fade, they're going to be said, and they have the right to be able to say them, but ultimately it is you that is going to decide if value is put on something that somebody says. That's the whole secret. But in a state of not sleeping for 3 days, you act in an irrational way. My parents ended up coming and picking me up, taking me back to my hometown here, and I had psychiatric care for 2 months. I was in the hospital. They put me on a medication called aripiprazole, and it settled my mind down. Now on that, since then, I've discontinued aripiprazole and took it as my duty to really make health my first priority, because health is wealth. So I decided that a prescription is not going to be what is going to be my solution. I know that the power is within myself, just as the power is within you to be able to create dramatic change in your life. It always has been, right? Supplements are exactly that. They are supplements in addition. But something that I've also noticed is a little bit of cognitive dissonance since I had that, all of those situations happen, and then the aripiprazole was introduced into my system to calm me down. But I do notice as I'm taking more activeness, there's a cool hawk way up here. As I'm taking more activity in my life to make health my number one priority, and to put effort in to find out what kind of life I really do want to live and how I can facilitate that, my cognition seems to be returning in healthy, beneficial ways. So back to the story. I was hospitalized for 2 months. And right before New Year's 2025, I mean, all this has happened, right? And at this point, I hadn't even really thought, oh, maybe it's Moldavite. Another very important detail. Right before my parents came to pick me up in Calgary, like the last bender that I had where I went into the Calgary Cowboys casino and bought a bunch of people drinks. I remember hitting this guy's vape. I got insanely high, unconsciously high, where I don't remember the night. I blacked out and I ended up losing not just my iPhone that night, my red iPhone, but I ended up losing the Moldavite. It disappeared that night. And I know for a fact I would not have given it to someone because it was on a $100 chain I got, which was sentimental, from Mexico. What's interesting is I had that bender of a night, and then I recall that I blacked out, and the next conscious memory I have is walking in the street and having this pink hospital blanket on my shoulders. It's bizarre. Look into parallel reality jumping, because that's one theory that I've got for what happened there. And what is known as Moldavite disappears once it's finished working with you. And so I take that event as the work that needed to be done in getting all those intoxicants and filthy habits and getting me on the right track for my best health. That was finalized. And when I was in the hospital, I picked up this piece of Moldavite. I call it Athena, which means wisdom. Okay, so that's sort of the climax of my Moldavite story. The rest is very sticking to habits and creating effective change in my life, taking ownership. What I decided at New Year's of this year, 2025, is, you know what? I don't want to be someone who's vaping anymore. I want to take a year's break from alcohol and from cannabis. I want to take ownership for my life, because I truly believe that there's more to what has happened than just the doctors describing it as a disability or as a diagnosis. I decided, you know what, there's a lot more going on. I want to be able to take action on my life, but I'm giving so much energy to all of these things that are clearly not working for me. I mean, I've ended up in the hospital due to them. And the way I was able to really reinforce that action would be taken in my life is I fell upon the concept of self-concept, or your ideal self. The self-concept is where you imagine and visualize who you can be in your highest ideal self, within health, within wealth, in your career, in your relationships, in your family, in your beliefs, in the way that you exude who you are and communicate with those around you. And then I, on top of that, found somebody like that I could anchor that as my work towards. So the way I did that is, there's a girl that I find very attractive. And I thought to myself, okay, Eric, what kind of guy does that girl truly deserve? If I were my highest, best ideal self, what would I be doing? Because she deserves the highest, best ideal self of me. And now the important thing to note is, I didn't start dating that person. I didn't even open the door to that. I just began understanding the idea that I need to start becoming my best self. And that allowed me to increase my self-concept. And that idea of, I want to be really good, not just for them, but for myself, that allowed me to make it through the first week of quitting vaping, of the first 3 months of quitting alcohol, getting cannabis out of the way. And by the way, with all those, I think alcohol is the most addictive. Nicotine's difficult to quit. And cannabis is the most relaxing. It really is not difficult to step away from. But self-concept itself was what helped me a lot with that. So from January 2025 until now, I've had all of those substances out of my life. But in the meantime as well, I started building habits of being honest with those that are around me, my family members, being open about my beliefs, something that I wasn't doing before. I started tracking my habits. I started going, okay, well, let's start to use to-do lists. Let's find out if I can organize the things in my life. I mean, I've got all this time now that I'm not giving my energy away trying to subsidize through an intoxicant or whatnot. And that started really working for me. I leaned into the mental health resources and the community resources that I have in my town here. And since I made this conscious decision that I'm gonna be my best self, that I deserve to be my best self and to speak what I truly think, to be as honest as the moment permits. Something that happened before Moldavite for me is I lost my best friend. He died from an overdose. And you can just imagine that effect on me, especially with the close call that I had in the overstimulation event in Salt Lake City. I mean, somebody leaving your life so dramatically, especially when you're in the dark night of your soul, it hurts. And that started teaching me, you know what? I've got to take the moment for what it is. Never coming back. And so this year I really leaned into that form of energy. If I'm going to be the best me, then it is up to me. The power is within. Some resources that really, really have been helpful for me is Tony Robbins' Awaken the Giant Within, Les Brown, and different motivational information. I also started cold showers, right? I take cold showers in the morning. Something very recent is now I'm experimenting not having coffee. I haven't had a coffee today. It's the 5th day without drinking any caffeine. And that is a dynamic shift in my energy levels. When it comes to Moldavite, I have had one of the most, if not the most dramatic change that I've ever seen in life. If it's due to the crystal, who knows? Or the tektite, we call it a tektite. Moldavite is a tektite. My story is the most dramatic life change that I've ever heard about when it comes to Moldavite. And if you are still watching this, thank you for being here. What I encourage you with Moldavite, know that this will be like that great-grandparent or the uncle who comes in your life. You know that you want change. And then they come in and say, okay, you're not going to like the way we need to do this, but we're going to do it. And they start taking action, moving things around, and one way or another, it happens. That change is put right in front of you in a way where you are conscious of it now. And it's up to you to decide, after being aware of it, am I going to put in the effort to change it? For myself, I am very grateful. Gratitude is the only way to get through anything, man. I've tried depression and it is not worth it. I'm so grateful that I went through this story because I don't see myself having come to such an abrupt and solid, sober and aware and active way of wanting to operate in my life other than with what has happened over the last year. And now I'm becoming a mentor for people in the interior health and different people who are running through programs like early psychosis. I love to be able to share my experience. That's why I am so thankful that I get to make videos like this. So when it comes to Moldavite, as my experience, I think that I've become more of the capable human being in a steadfast way than I ever would have in some other way. And even with me living at my parents', I see that as a huge blessing. Why? We're gonna die one day. We're gonna die one day. And nobody will remember me. That's a song that my friend Tommy Drinkard wrote. The idea that we are all gonna die. That's why I'm so thankful I get to live with my parents. And I get to get back into the healthiest version of myself. And to really laser into what it is that I want to do on this planet. Music, that's something that I'm using the resources I've got around me to establish. A live music performance business. Something I've always wanted to do, and yet life and distractions, they get in the way, and so it doesn't happen. Well, now everything got put in my face in such a way where I'm like, all right, if I only had another year to live, what would I do in this next year? And on top of that, I mean, like, I've had beautiful financial resources come my way, but I'm still in debt, which is the interesting thing. It's like the universe has positioned things in such a way where all of my finances are managed, and yet I still have debt to pay, but that money is there to pay it each month. And so it's more of an attitude shift for myself to figure out, okay, well, the money's going to be there already. So what am I going to do with the time? Am I going to continue worrying about money the way that we're taught to do? Or am I going to go, okay, wait, it's actually all figured out. What's the biggest impact that I can have with my time and with my resources? That's where I'm focused at now. And the goal is within the next year to move to Kelowna, which is a neighboring city here, and have my music business prosperous and expanded in a grounded way. That is my 1 year Moldavite review. I wear this Moldavite now. I don't see it disappearing. I've heard that if you stabilize with it, then it won't disappear, but it'll just allow negative energy to completely stay out. And for you to have strength with your decisions as you continue on. So I'm leaning into that. For you, take what you will. That is my story. Be careful. Be safe. And I truly hope that you get the change that you need. Because it is much better to be redirected and then to reach the destination that you desire, instead of never getting a redirection, going back and forth through storms and through turbulence and whatnot, and never getting to the destination because you wasted so much time without being redirected. As Jim Rohn says, here's how I'll close this out. It's not the wind that blows on us all. The same wind blows on us all. It is the set of your sail. 1 degree of a difference in the set of your sail in 1 year, 2 years, 5 years can set you in a drastically different destination than without the change. So don't complain about the winds. We all have to deal with the wind. Learn to know when you're in a storm, going in a storm, coming out of a storm, and learn how to adjust. Be humble. That's it. I hope that you enjoyed the video. If you did, subscribe to the channel and hit a thumbs up on it so that this video can be seen by other people who are interested in Moldavite. I appreciate your time, and yeah, this is Epicworld. Peace out.